Alright, I wanted to put together a quick video. Alright, I wanted to put together a quick video of whether or not it is worth buying what I think is a Gen 2 Prius. I'm going to tell a little bit of the backstory of this car, and then we'll get some shots of the car. We're actually selling it due to some... We don't drive as far as we used to. So the backstory is we had a 2011 Suburban that the wife drove. And her commute for work over doubled. So I crunched the numbers and I figured out that we could buy a high mileage Prius. And as long as no major repairs happened or breakdowns, we could, if we could get 1 year out of the Prius, we'd be money ahead. As far as versus her driving the Suburban all the time. So I hunted around for probably a month, and I found 2004 Prius. I want to say it had 230,000 on it. Elderly couple had it. Very well maintained. It still has, and had at that time as well, the original hybrid battery. These things run two batteries, a big high voltage hybrid battery and then a tiny little 12 volt battery, which we'll get into that later. At any rate, I jumped on it. We paid $2,400, I think, for the car. I put snow tires on it because these things are terrible in the snow without snow tires. So I put some snow tires on it, and she started driving it. We bought it in the winter, so we were getting, at the time, I think we were getting about, she's not as good at getting fuel economy as I am. We were getting probably high 30s, low 40s miles to the gallon out of it, which is a tiny bit lower than what we thought, but it was okay, way better than the Suburban. And we ended up selling the Suburban because when you have something really, really nice and it has full coverage on it and it just sits, then it's kind of, after a while, it becomes a financial burden just from the insurance standpoint. And we found ourselves not driving it just because we had two Suburbans. I daily drove a Suburban at the time too, an older one. So we ended up selling that Suburban, which was a good thing because it was nice to have the payment gone. And this little Prius, we didn't have anything into it, and we literally went into this car saying that if it broke down, we would just move on and get something else. We were not planning on any major repairs if they happened on this. So let's go through what we did do for repairs. I'm an ASE certified master mechanic, so I kind of went into this with the premise that if I have to, I will fix it, but I'd rather not. I've worked on a few of these, but not a ton of hybrids. Worked on a lot of Toyotas in my life, so as far as that goes, I'm pretty well versed. So we bought it. She drove it. We have owned it for almost, about 2 years exactly right now. And the repairs we've done to it, when we first bought it, there was a ride height sensor in the back, and it's there for your high beams and low beams, these have HID. Not all of them, but most of them have HID headlights, and they actually adjust the aim of the headlights based off of the ride height of the rear vehicle. At least that's what I'm under the impression of. So I put a ride height sensor in. The only reason why I put it in is because there was an annoying light on the dash. I think it was a red exclamation point. It took me a while to kind of figure out what was going on there, but we got that wrapped up. Amazon is your friend for that sensor, by the way. So we did that. I did left front axle seal on it, because that went from not leaking at all to leaking a lot in a matter of overnight. And from what I'm reading online, it sounds like they're pretty common seals to go out. Seals super cheap through Toyota. I think it was $7 at the Toyota dealership. A little bit of effort to put it in. There's, I'm sure, YouTube videos on that. And we had a right rear strut blowout, and it caused some very strange instability in the vehicle when it was fully loaded with people, when we had all the kids in it, which is when you want the car to be the most stable. It didn't feel very comfortable. It was kind of wandering. So I went to the junkyard for those. I put 2 used rear struts out of a lower mile Prius from a junkyard. So, and oil changes. That's all we've done to this car. So in the matter of 2 years, our total investment is under $100. Well, not including the snow tires, but we still have the snow tires, and they're going to get sold with the car. So our total investment in the car is under $100 maintenance wise. You know, you might say we're lucky with the hybrid battery, but there is videos on YouTube. I've watched a bunch of them. The individual cells for the hybrid battery are available. I haven't messed with them. You know, do at your own risk. It's very high voltage, very dangerous stuff if you're not respectful of it. But that was my plan going into it. If I did run into an issue with that, is I would order a cell or 2 from Amazon and try to repair just the individual ones as needed. Aside from that, we have driven this car literally everywhere we go. We take this thing just because of the fuel economy, and it's small. So we have 3 kids that we pack in here, and it's not very comfortable for them. That's partially why we're getting rid of it, because they're getting older, getting bigger. But I took it, we live in Minnesota. I took it this fall. I took it on a small road trip with my brother. We went from Minnesota to Wisconsin into Illinois, down to Iowa and back up. I think it was about 1,500 miles we put on the car, somewhere around that. And we averaged, it was before it cooled off, it was still warm outside, 60s, 70s, the majority of the time. And I kept the car under 70, right at 70 miles an hour max. Like I don't, these things start to chew up gas pretty good if you go over 70. So that's something to keep an eye on. But we averaged 49.5 miles to the gallon on that entire trip, which when you take a trip of that size, and fuel prices were low this fall, man, it was dirt cheap driving this thing around. As far as cost of ownership, I would absolutely recommend owning one of these again to anyone. Let's see what else. Things to be aware of. Let's go through a couple things on these to be aware of. Fit and finish isn't phenomenal. The seats are not very comfortable if you're going over about, my brother and I, on our trip, we decided it was about 100, a little over 100 miles. So a little over an hour and your back starts hurting. Like, these seats are not road trip seats. They're get to work and get home seats. So that's one thing that to be aware of if you're doing long distance. I don't know, maybe swap in a newer seat or something. I don't know what the options are there, or put a cushion on top of it. That might help. As far as the rear liftgate has a, well, I'll get out in a minute and show you, but the rear liftgate has a a little squeeze button under the lift gate to open it. It electrically releases the lift gate. That whole rear plastic thing is chintzy, and it broke on ours. I kept my eyes out at the junkyard. Everyone I saw was broken. They're $70 on Amazon, so it's not that big of a deal. But again, our whole intent with this car was as cheap as physically possible that we could get by driving this thing. Liability insurance is cheap on it. It's got a driver's side airbag on it and stuff. So it's got side curtain airbags. So insurance is cheap on it. As far as getting around, we live in the Midwest. We have snow. Without snow tires, these things are basically worthless in the snow. Snow tires make it drivable. It was very early on in I think Toyota's traction control, and it's obnoxious. When it spins, it basically shuts the car off and then brings it back on and shuts it. I mean, it's so far over the top, it's not even funny, and I'm sure they did it to protect the drivetrain, but without snow tires, it's basically worthless. And we did see a drop in fuel economy with the temperature and the snow tires that we had on there, but well worth it. Well worth the drivability that you gain from it. Not a big fan of the radio system in here. And we did, here, let me spin this around. So we did, under here, there's one of your points to plug into, and we just had a USB adapter for the radio, because that's your radio. So, now, we got some stains in the seats and stuff, but 2 cup holders. And then there's another port right there. So, not gonna win any awards. This is I have it duct taped on right here. This is the plastic piece that breaks. Just something to be aware of. Well, they start and stop on their own. It takes a while to get used to. I apologize for the wind today. Going back in here and wrap up the video. Alright, so would I own another one? Absolutely. I think if I was going to do it over again, I would try to get a little bit newer one. Although I don't know much about those ones as far as reliability goes. I see a lot of these, I've been paying attention to them at work. I see a lot of these well over 200,000 miles. Some of the training that I've done for Toyotas and hybrids in general, the instructors have told us that a lot of the cab companies in the big cities have switched to these because although they're a little bit more to repair, the fuel savings and the other reasons, you know, the size of them, they'll fit anywhere. I mean, these things are tiny. They'll fit in any parking spot, damn near. They're worth it. So they're common to find in your local U-Pull type junkyards, and that's a benefit if you're a do-it-yourselfer. So for me, I would own another one. I don't think I would be scared of a high mile one, although buyer beware on the hybrid battery. I think these things I think they were overbuilt for what they were because they were such an early hybrid vehicle. I think I would be less scared of owning one of these than I would be one of the newer generations, because a lot of times the manufacturers will overbuild them and then they'll realize, we didn't need to do that, so they'll reel back, and quality kind of, although the fit and finish always gets better, quality of the major components seems to kind of taper back, and we see that a lot in the industry with different manufacturers. But yeah, I would own another one. Again, this one right now it has 287,000 miles. So we bought it with 240 roughly. And so we've put 47,000 miles on it with essentially zero out of pocket, aside from buying the car. And I'm going to try to get around 1,700 out of it, which is, that puts us under $1,000 to drive it for now 2 years. So $1,000, 2 years of daily commuting for the wife to work and carting the kids around and all that stuff. It's not bad. Thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe.